Hello everyone, my name is Aaron Christensen. This is Horror 101 with Dr. AC, celebrating classic horror throughout history with new episodes every Friday night. Tonight we're talking about Spanish writer-director Amando de Ossorio's breathtaking horror masterpiece, Tombs of the Blind Dead, 1972. A landmark achievement that introduced an entirely new monster into the genre, the haunting Knights Templar. Complete with shabby robes, skeletal faces, grizzled facial hair, shiny swords, and a quenchless thirst for human blood. In fact, the early scenes of this zombie flick, yes, we'll call them zombies for now, are so overwhelming in their thick, gloomy atmosphere that viewers cannot help but admire the sheer confidence and audacity executed in bringing them to the screen. Ossorio provides a brief introductory setup of three romantically entwined companions on a train ride through the Spanish countryside, then embarks on a breathtaking 20-minute, nearly dialogue-free episode that must be experienced to be believed. During this astounding sequence, Anton Garcia Abril's jangling, chanting, percussive musical score and lively environmental soundtrack combine with Ossorio's eerie visuals to create an intoxicating, dreamlike aura. What follows is an intriguing original plot centering on the devil-worshipping Templar Knights, based on the legitimate historical figures who fought in the Crusades and were later put to death for their efforts. And while it's hard to measure up to that remarkable opening act, Ossorio does his best to recapture the mood throughout, with slow-motion scenes of the recently revived Undead riding horseback, a particularly inspired touch, and the gleefully sinister train station climax delivering the requisite 1970s downbeat ending. In addition to Ossorio's prolific career, which features titles like Demon Witch Child, The Lorelei's Grasp, The Sea Serpent, and Night of the Sorcerers, the success of Tombs of the Blind Dead spawned three more loosely connected entries in the series over the next 3 years: Return of the Blind Dead, The Ghost Galleon, and Night of the SEAGULLS. Together, they form an unforgettable quartet of thrills and chills, staking out an undeniable place in Spanish horror history. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. As in Knights Templar, we're going to be celebrating the Tombs of the Blind Dead, and we have an incredible panel to chat about it with me. Let's bring everybody in, and let's say hello to Alan Trump, beaming in from St. Louis.
Good to be on board.
From the East Coast, Damian Glonick.
Hey, everybody, fellow Templar fans.
All the way from Sweden, Jimmy Searson.
Don't speak. That's the only way you'll be safe.
Ryan Olson, beaming in from Michigan.
Hello.
And from the West Coast, Darren Callahan.
Great to be back.
And we're going to be chatting about Tombs of the Blind Dead from 1972, and we're going to be talking about the follow-ups Return of the Blind Dead from 1973, also known as Return of the Evil Dead, The Ghost Galleon from 1974, and Night of the SEAGULLS from 1975, and we will be talking spoilers, so just prepare yourselves, everybody. Thanks for coming on the show, and welcome. Going back, this was meant to be a 50th anniversary because I could have sworn that Tombs of the Blind Dead had a 1971 timestamp on it. I think it was made in 1971, but didn't get released until 1972. So we're calling this an early anniversary. I'm really psyched to have this. Everybody here is a Blind Dead fan just from personal conversations. Jimmy, you actually wrote the essay for Hidden Horror on Tombs of the Blind Dead. But let's go ahead and start things off with Alan. How did you come to the Blind Dead for the first time?
You know, I think I saw a photograph, and I had a little oral surgery, so I pardon if I'm a little mushy. I think I saw a photograph of it in Dennis Skipper's Pictorial History of Horror Movies. And what the heck? It looked unlike anything I'd ever seen before, with these guys running around with these moldy robes chasing, European miniskirt girls with their, sabers and stuff. So that was the first place. Finally, I don't think I actually saw the VHS Paragon. They used to have the big box VHS with the Paragon one. I think I finally picked it up from Anchor Bay on VHS. And then it wasn't even dubbed into English. It was just the Spanish print. So I finally got to see it. So I've seen it. I've seen all the sequels. And amazingly, because Vinegar Syndrome or somebody recently did a reissue, they even had a midnight showing of it here in St. Louis like 2 months ago.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Over to you, Damien. I actually just recently read on Facebook, this is your favorite franchise, like a horror franchise. Is that true?
If you want to call it that, yes, it is. Absolutely love the Blind Dead films. I unfortunately don't remember when I stumbled upon them, but it was probably back in the bootleg VHS days when I was just buying everything. I clearly remember getting the Ghost Galleon and it being so dark you just could not see the movie at all practically because so much of it is at night on the ship. But then I remember getting Tombs and just being like, I absolutely love the look of these creatures, and I became fascinated with them. And the slow motion, everything was just, it sold me on everything I love about like zombies and horror.
Bouncing down to you, Jimmy. As I mentioned, you did contribute the essay for Tombs of the Blind Dead for our book Hidden Horror. And the way Hidden Horror came to be was that we reached out to folks and we said, hey, what are the movies that you think need to be showcased that don't get talked about enough? And you chose Tombs of the Blind Dead. How'd you come to the movie? But also, what made you want to talk about it?
It was definitely online on forums such as the IMDb horror boards. Before that, I knew there was a lot of the zombie movies made after Dawn of the Dead. People mentioned there were a few that were made between Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead. And the two that always were mentioned were Let Sleeping Corpses Lie and Tombs of the Blind Dead. But they are not just regular zombies. They are like, it's a new creature, like a zombie-like creature. So a very effective movie, I think.
Yeah, looking forward to chatting more about it. Ryan, how about you? How'd you come to this one for the first time?
Well, I was a little bit late to the game when it comes to the Blind Dead. I mean, I had seen pictures in magazines and stuff, reading things, and I always thought they were really cool looking. I knew of them, but I didn't actually see the movies in full until the Blue Underground box set came out. I had seen some pieces that when I was over by our mutual friend Dave's house, and they were murky and looked terrible, and you could barely see stuff. Some of it was attack scenes. I think one even was from Ghost Galleon. But when the Blue Underground box set came out, Dave actually gifted it to me for my birthday. And so that was awesome. I sat down and I watched them all like within probably a day or two. Been in love with them ever since. Fantastic, unique creatures, and the atmosphere and everything's amazing.
And Darren, how about you?
I was pretty late to it. I was probably about 20 years ago, mid 2000s. I actually saw a still photograph in another zombie book. And it was the Templars pulling the conductor off the train. And I just thought it was a really striking image. I thought, what's that? There was a little blurb about the train scene being particularly shocking in the first film. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. So it was basically piqued my interest. I did also have a hard time finding it. I found the first film, but then later I bought that Blue Underground box set you guys were talking about. So
we have mentioned the fact that they are kind of zombie inspired, certainly. But Jimmy, as you wrote in your essay, they're kind of a combo of like vampire, mummy, and zombie. And that makes them something unique. I mean, they're based on the real life Knights Templar in the 13th century. These knights are twisted a little bit. And I think that's kind of the great thing about this series. Damien, you're right. It's not necessarily a franchise. We do not follow a linear story in any way, shape, or form. We just kind of get different stories with the Knights Templar throughout. We hadn't seen anything like it before, and nobody else seems to have picked up the baton. There have been a couple of recent films that I'll talk about later on, but let's go ahead and start off with our first film, Tombs of the Blind Dead. Basically starts off with a love triangle of sorts. They go on a little train trip, and one of them decides to get off the train and wanders into the cemetery where the Knights Templar are residing, and then they rise up at night. What's some of the things that make the Knights Templar and this first film, Tombs of the Blind Dead, special?
What makes all these films so special is the atmosphere that they convey, especially, and they pretty much reuse this in every film except the Ghost Galleon, where they're coming out of their tombs, the smoky graveyard. I'm a complete sucker for all that kind of universal Hammer Gothic look of graveyards, mist and smoke, and this just plays up on that. The shaking tombstones, the vaults open, and the hands coming out. It's also the look of the creatures, how they're just tattered robes and hoods that they have, and the fact that they all have this like mustaches and beards and goatees that still like it's. You rarely see that in like a zombie, right? Zombies are always clean shaven or all their hair fell out or something. they retain that, and this just has so much atmosphere in that, the way they slowly move, but it's also, then they do it in slow motion, the horse riding, to actually be like, yeah, these creatures move slow, but if they were on a horse, the horses would be moving fast, so they slow it down, so it seems like time just almost stands still for them.
I have to echo some of the stuff that Damien was saying. There's always a debate about what is more frightening, a fast zombie or a slow zombie. Well, these are very slow but very frightening, and they are well armed. I mean, their robes and things may be in tatters, but their swords, not a hint of rust on them when they come after you. So, and the thing is, they sneak up on you, but there are so many of them, and they come up, come up right behind you. And when I first was getting into horror films, one of the most striking thing, I saw the trailer for Barbara Steele's Black Sunday. Yavuto comes out of the ground, and that really stuck with me. And this is like that on steroids, with all the crypts and tombs and everything coming up. Like you said, they're unusual. Sometimes sunlight affects them. Sometimes they worship the devil. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they have the backstory about eyes getting gouged out or eyes getting eaten out by crows. I do like, maybe some people say that the director was milking it a little bit, but I do like the little new wrinkles he puts on every one of the different feature films. They are well thought of enough. If you go to Salem, Massachusetts, they have a wax museum there called something like Dr. Orloff's House of Horrors. And they have Freddy Krueger and It and Frankenstein. They have a Blind Dead. They have a Blind Dead wax figure. So might not be in the mainstream, but definitely recognized by the community.
I think they are a unique monster, and I'm glad to see them getting showcased.
Some people say it sounds stupid when I explain to them about the Blind Dead, because they're blind and they think, shouldn't you just be able to just walk away? But they manage to find situations where the characters are not at home, like they are at the monastery, and they're surprised by these Templars, and they are able to hunt by sound, which I don't think they make use of so much in the sequels.
Mm-hmm.
But the scariest little clip from the first film for me is when Betty's heart starts beating, and they can hunt her by the sound. And and the ground fog and everything that's been mentioned, that's also gives a lot of atmosphere to these films.
I find it funny that they don't keep use of the fact that they can hear the heartbeats after the first movie. It's only the first movie where they use that heartbeat for being able to find them. You see in the other ones, when we get to those, that they just be quiet and they don't seem to realize that, hey, there's beating hearts around us, which I thought was interesting.
For those in the audience that have never seen these films, and I'm sure there's a portion of it, although why the hell would you click on a Tombs of the Blind Dead podcast if you didn't already know something? You're like, oh, I like that title. But these are 4 movies made in 1 decade by one person. And yeah, all 4 of them have the same bad guys and the same vibe, but the plots are totally different and the origin stories are totally different. And I just want to remind people of a time in the 70s where 2 things could happen. One, there was no home video. There was unlikely chance maybe they saw one. Maybe somebody came into the theater and just saw the 3rd movie. And they all are standalone movies. You don't need to watch the other ones, although they're of various quality. You might want to just confirm you're right about them. So for convenience, they could change the backstory or the plot or the characters, and it didn't matter because people might only be ever seeing one of the 4 and then they'd be lost to the sands of time. Now, we think things through a little bit more in today's motion picture industry about IP and consistency, even though Harry Potter, they have tricks in a Harry Potter movie that I'm like, in this movie thereafter, I'm like, use that trick from the last movie. That would solve everything here, right? I mean, just do that. You know how to do that trick. I just saw you do it in a previous school year. So it kind of feels like that here, where it's like, hey, man, these don't all add up, but that's okay. But, back in the day, franchises, let's choose Airport, for example. It was basically based on a plane, and stuff went down on a plane 4 times. This is kind of like that. There's basically a certain type of very unique, never seen before both in terms of its design, but its movement and its desires and creepy factor. Let's just see it 4 times in 4 different scenarios. And so just like the airplane and the airport movies, you see this happening here. And Dirty Harry's the same way. Magnum Force, the second Dirty Harry movie, they never say he killed the killer in the first movie and saved the city from this mass sniper. They're just like, oh, it's another day at the office kind of vibe. And these films kind of have that. They don't really look back. I mean, you'd think somebody would have written a news story about these darn things at some point. But yeah, I mean, once you get over all that, it really is 4 very consistent, at least in terms of where they're trying to take you, and slightly grimy, very exploitative, but they're real movies. They're not crappy movies. They got some pacing problems, they got some performance problems, but like not on the scale of which many other classic films have. So they actually get away with quite a bit here. So if you're new to the franchise, you never saw it, check it out. And if you are just here for the fun of all these people celebrating what we already know and love about it, stick around. All right, cool.
Well, and that's a great point, Darren, because I think it's viewed as a fault of the franchises that they don't all play in the same universe. And watching it this time around, I mean, I would say that probably I felt that way in the past. Watching it this time around, I'm like, how great is it that we get 4 different Blind Dead stories that do have different backstories, that do have different rules? It makes it more exciting because you're like, I don't know what they're going to be able to do this time around or not do this time around. I like we get to the 4th one, which is kind of like a Lovecraft feel to it. You know, it's like kind of set on this coastal village and you've got, you know, sacrifices. How cool that you just, and why not treat it like a vampire? It's like just drop a vampire into a different scenario. That's kind of what we're getting here. We're getting the Blind Dead dropped into different scenarios and seeing how it would play out. So I actually see it as a strength this time around. And Ossorio is, you know, he's naming these movies different things, at least the last 2. You know, he's not trying to make it seem like it's Blind Dead 4. You know, it's like, no, here's what the Night of the SEAGULLS does, and here's what Ghost GALLEON does.
I think that's one of we miss that a lot. Of course, it used to be it was Rocky 1, Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4. I mean, they would just numerically increment it. Right. And then they started doing Final Destination 2, something, you know, right. And then they eventually just dropped it, the numbering altogether. And I kind of like that. And here it works too. I like that they have 4 completely different titles. I don't think all the titles are like as cool as Tombs of the Blind Dead. That's a pretty darn good horror title. But I don't care that one is called Night of the SEAGULLS. It actually makes it kind of more of a curio, I think. But then again, look at the Dirty Harry movies as another analog. I mean, all those are named totally different things. They just have the same sort of punch.
For me, that's the fun of it. Like knowing, you know, that Escape from the Planet of the Apes is the 3rd one, you know, knowing that, you know, Frankenstein Created Woman, that's the 4th one. You know, there's a little bit of cachet around that, I think.
I mean, these must have been successful to some extent that he made 4 consecutive Blind Dead films in a row in his career. It's not, if they were not making money, you know, he would not have been doing this. I mean, personally, for me, despite all their faults and stuff, I am blind to the Blind Dead. Like anything could happen. They could do anything. And I'm like, yep, love it. Love it. As long as they look like they do, act the way they do, I'm in. I don't care. I kind of like the fact that they also have so many titles, like, you know, like Horror of the Zombies and Return of the Evil Dead and Return of the Blind. There's like so many different ways. And what the hell is the Planet of the Apes one?
From God, yeah, Revenge from Planet Ape. We'll talk about that.
Where does that come from? So it really all brings into this allure of the mystery of these films and these characters.
It's just made as 4 movies with the same monster, I suppose. You could try to force continuity if you want to, because they are different Templars. They could have used different rituals, ending up with different rules, but I mean, the director also said they were spiritual sequels, so it's just easier to just view them as 4 separate movies.
If anything, I find it more kind of entertaining how it almost feels like the first movie could have been the last movie or you know, the second film, like Return of the Blind Dead could have been what happened before, because by the time you get in Tombs, everything's desolate. There's nobody hanging out up there. They don't go up there. But then in the second movie, it's like, you know, Berzano is completely packed and everybody's living there and, you know, celebration and doing all that stuff. And then when you get to Night of the SEAGULLS, again, that could be another one where like, well, they finally worked out a pact with the Templars so that they can coexist, so to speak, until, the Doctor comes and screws it all up. I kind of like that. And I mean, with the Ghost Galleon too, I like how it still ties in with the Spanish history stuff where the Templars are on the ship, and that it's kind of also has a little hint of the Dutchman there where they even mention it. And it's just another unique scenario of them while they're on there. I mean, Templars were scattered all over the place back when they were around. So it kind of makes sense that, well, maybe this portion of the group ended up on this ship, and maybe it's just other groups of Templars that we keep running into, and some of them have different abilities.
I also like the fact that you get different interpretations and things. You mentioned the Lovecraft stuff in the last one, Night of the Seagulls. Several people have mentioned that they may be referencing, like in Lovecraft's story, The Dunwich Horror, if somebody dies, the whippoorwills try to catch their soul. And here you've got the seagulls are the reincarnated spirits of the poor girls who get killed. Plus you have that whole thing with the village. That's really folk horror stuff, with the town.
Yeah.
I do wonder how anybody survives in that town, because they kill all the young women every 100 years or whatever. Why
It's
would
just
you
seven
stay?
of them. It's just seven. We're fine.
Yeah, you set in your ways. You want to stay there and stuff. So you have that. Plus, in that one, you have this fish god idol they pray to that looks
Yeah.
like Dagon or Cthulhu or one of
Mhm.
Lovecraft's entities. I like the idea of having the contemporary mod world in Ghost Galleon, where you got the publicity stunt, but you wind up back in this time warp back in the 16th century and everything. And I also really like the fact in the second film in which the Templars wind up reanimated at a festival of their destruction. And they're like,
Yeah.
hi, we got some presents for you, that sort of thing. You do have some little things that carry over from the different films. Every one of them, they are kind of exploitation movies, so you have a sexual assault in just about every one of them. You have a slow person who winds up getting beat to death just about in every film by the villagers. And as a good friend of mine that got me into a lot of these films once commented, you have the most wonderful European fashion shows you've ever imagined, whether it's mini skirts to the swimming jacket that the lead character wears in the first one. Amazing stuff.
As several of you pointed out, the atmosphere is so incredible. And there is, following Maria Elena Arpon's character, Virginia, after she gets off the train, it's almost a wordless sequence for about 20 minutes where it's just her. She's getting set up a little camp for herself. The Knights Templar start coming out of their graves. They start stalking her. And it just goes on for like 20 minutes with no dialogue and just tons and tons of atmosphere. And I got to say, Maria Elena Arpon, she should be a stunt person. Like, she jumps off that train. I'm like, that's the actress doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's like climbing around. She is doing some serious stunt work.
Especially the original Spanish cut, there is a lot of mystery at the start of this film, because even though we see the Templars after a while, we don't know anything about them
That's
at
right.
all. In the US version, they put a sacrifice flashback early in the scene in the movie, but this actually very late in the original cut. So that's very intentional. We find out little by little who they are, and that works very great. And we don't need a lot of dialogue in the early when she's at the monastery.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. There is mystery around it. We've literally never seen creatures like this before, and we have no explanation behind them. They just start coming out of the graves and stalking her. We don't even know that they're blind. We just see them slowly moving, and it's really fascinating. I mean, granted, it's in the title, so you could probably infer that. We have Lona Fleming as Betty, and then Cesar Burner as Roger, and they are the two who are left on the train after Virginia skips out on them, and they go back looking for her. But then we have a resurrected version of Virginia, which I consistently forget. The Blind Dead are our main zombies, but then they have the ability to turn them as well.
The resurrection of Betty, for one thing, you've got a morgue, and you got that crazy coroner guy who takes pleasure in, pulling the sheets off of bereaved, victims and stuff, and like playing around with frogs and things. So, one thing I do have, I have a one sheet for The Blind Dead, which was a early release of this, where they cut a lot of the stuff out. It has no Blind Dead on it. It has the lady, the wearing her, little outfit, and she's reaching for the woman who's working. Oh, okay. There's another thing. The mannequin factory is creepy
Right.
as hell. I mean, you got all those red lights flashing and all of these synthetic bodies, and you've got a real monster coming up through there for you. The same person who first told me about the movie got his mother to take him to see it. R-rated in New Orleans. He'd seen, they must have done saturation advertising for it because, please take me, it's R, I can't go by myself. He says, all right, his mother took him. So he took him, and they got to the end, and there is a scene at the end, and I don't even need to say what it is. I'll leave that as a surprise, but it is so nasty that he, as a kid, crawled under the seat in front of him to get away from the Templars and he's down there in the filth, and he's crying, and his mother is yelling at him, I'll never take you to another horror movie in your life. So just the unflinching savagery of scenes like that. Hard to beat.
Clearly, the slow motion riding the horses is what I love most visually about these films, but every scene with the knights in themselves. But like you were saying earlier, you forget about the whole resurrection of Virginia scene, and something like that is not in any of the other movies. As we said, these movies can all stand on their own very well, and this is a clear example of Tombs being something like we only think of The Blind Dead when we think of Tombs and The Blind Dead. We never think of Virginia as a zombie brought back because they bit her and stuff like that. We never think of them biting other characters in any other movie and bringing them back. It's just that one Tombs movie that does that, which is really interesting, that how he reinvents these characters 4 different times.
I think the real secret sauce here is the director actually seems to really like horror. Which is weird because a lot of times those guys were like, oh, I've made a student film or I've made another type of film or a sex comedy or something, and now I'm doing a horror film. This guy seems to be like, I don't know, what's a equivalent guy today that just really actually likes horror movies, like a Ty West or something. He's like, I actually know how these work. So you're going to, in the first movie, you're going to get a resurrection in a morgue. You're going to get a spooky castle for 20 minutes where we open every darn door. Ty West style, House of the Devil, has that babysitter walking around opening every door for 20 minutes of silence, and kind of has the same effect here of a good slow burn. And, obviously he knows a little bit about exploitation. He's probably trying to make a little bit of a political message about Franco or whatever. But like the bottom underlying girders of this is somebody who actually just enjoys it. And I don't mean enjoys it because they're nefarious or a perv or something. I mean, they like horror films. It's like a Tarantino thing where it's a film about horror films. And he's just pulling a lot of those same ideas that you've seen in all the films up to that point. Romero or Hammer or whoever was permutating the zeitgeist. It's a bit nasty, but I don't think it reaches the level of some Fulci stuff. It doesn't go that far. Although Tombs of the Blind Dead ending, that is hardcore. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It does stick the landing there on that first film. The rest of them have some pity, but that first one, no mercy in that first one.
I mean, you still get a little bit of gore in there when they whack off the guy's arm, and there's a little bit of stuff that you still get that taste of, because they do actually use the swords, and there's a lot of different elements of it that I think are great. I mean, the whole sequence with Virginia when she's hanging out in there. I mean, I find it very entertaining that, I mean, what worldly people they were back then, that she could just hop off a train with her little sack and start a fire and, set herself up and have no problem getting undressed and doing all that and just hanging out in this musty, dusty old place, not worrying at all about the fact that she just got told by the guy on the train that there's nothing around for miles and miles. And she's just like, I'm out. Peace. I'm going to go hang out in this country and do it. I mean, and it's great, and it's funny because, you watch it and you go, well, that'd be funny. But at the same time, you're totally invested. So you're not, it doesn't matter. You're into it. And you're just Like when things start happening and they come out, it's just crazy. And again, like you said, the resurrection of her, I agree. It's like I always forget kind of that that's in the movie, and when it comes, it's like, man, it's so great because she looks great. She's really cool looking. The way they have the makeup done and all that stuff is awesome. And that creepy corner man with tormenting the frog, it's like, he's such a wacky, weird dude. And then you get Pedro with his pit stains that are he's a criminal just hanging out, and but he comes up, he's like, hey, why don't you come with me, let's go do this. He's like, sure, we'll go, come on, we'll hang out. It's a chance for him to unfortunately mistreat Lona's character.
I can't really tell if this is the time period, it's the Europeanness of it, or it's just screenwriting convenience, but people make choices that I don't think many people would make, and it's fine because it gets them into these situations. But like, I can probably say in the 4 movies, there's probably 4 or 5 decisions in each movie where you're like, that doesn't seem like a good idea, but they do it anyway.
Well, and I would totally want Virginia to be a camping buddy for a variety of reasons, but she's very resourceful. Completely prepared.
I can mention the ending too, even though it's very disturbing, the uncut train sequence. But when the train actually arrives and we don't see a lot what is going on,
right?
People scream and the movie ends. And tying back actually to the resurrection of Virginia, which actually influences the interpretation for me of that scene. Because I think this is the start of a zombie epidemic. Because, now all these people are going to return as the undead. Things are left a little vague, but that's also good. And sometimes you add yourself the scariest part yourself.
Aaron, it always bothers you, at least in past podcasts you've talked about it, when you don't understand the motivation of a thing. Maybe that's the actor in you. What in this first movie, Tombs of the Blind Dead, what do you think the Templars want?
Well, I mean, they're blood drinkers is what I got. Now, what came up for me this time was like, what's the inciting incident? What revives them this time around? Or is this just something, they just hang out there, hoping random strangers wander by? Because it doesn't seem like this is a very populated area. How often do they get to drink? How often do they get to actually have a little taste? Because I don't see too many people jumping off the train and wandering over to the deserted monastery.
Personally, I think it might be Virginia's little transistor radio. Seems like the Templars don't like that rock and roll music, man. They're real weird.
This is Franco Spain, after all.
Yeah.
They are pretty strict. Speaking of music, however, we must talk about this score by Anton Garcia Abril, because I think that is absolutely influential and part of what makes the atmosphere so great. Darren, you are a film composer. I'll go ahead and start things off with you.
All 4 movies seem to use the same music from the first movie. They basically commissioned him, I think, to write one score, and then they're like, well, it's the same. We're just going to use it again and again and again. But the funny thing, it ain't broke. But here's what's I think really interesting about it. It's you hear all the cues in the first movie that you hear in the next 3 movies. However, they always pick a different cue sort of as the theme. So, for example, there's in Tombs of the Blind Dead, in a very minor scene in the background, you hear that, I think it's a woman singing over and over again in a loop. That is the theme song of the 4th one. So it's like they picked different pieces of music for emphasis in each movie to give that a unique identity, but they don't sound like, and I could be wrong, they don't sound like they recorded any new material. They just picked a different slice to repeat or to play louder in the mix or to be a part of it. But I got to say, the whole piece, completely unavailable on streaming or vinyl or anything as far as I can tell, but the whole piece is like this great dirgy symphony, so much so that there's a band called Zoltan, Zoltan, and they have done a cover of all the songs from it. That's about as close as you get to a soundtrack, but mostly they do it in sort of a heavy metal, black metal kind of way. But the original tunes, I think they just have sort of a rattling chains or something, but done with instrumentation. And you could probably hear the music as standalone and get the creeps, because it's that sort of dank, dark, dungeony kind of thing. I mean, really delivers. My only beef is that there's no soundtrack album.
One time, I'm always on the lookout for Halloween music, and one time on eBay, I looked. Somebody had very completely illegally, I'm sure, taken all of the and put them all together on a CD for you. So you had all of those. Remember when those monk chants were popular for about 20 years ago?
Man.
Yep.
In 1988, 89.
Yeah. And that disappeared after a few days. And I thought, gee, I kind of regret not picking one of those up.
Ryan, maybe you know this better than anyone, but didn't the Synapse 4K come with the soundtrack, one of the discs?
No, actually, it's only a Blu-ray to it. They didn't put it out on 4K yet. But what they did was they put out a tribute to the Blind Dead CD, and they got a bunch of bands that were inspired by the Blind Dead. I believe even most famous to me is Hooded Menace from Finland, the awesome doom death metal band, who all their art and their records are all focused around the Blind Dead. In fact, a friend of the show, Putrid Matt Carr, was responsible for doing their album covers and most of their art for the first few albums and releases, which is amazing. If you've never seen it, I recommend it. And the music's really good too. They're a fantastic band for that style. But I believe that they're on there, and a bunch of other bands as well. It's all basically that were inspired by the film, but it's not the actual soundtrack, unfortunately.
Well, that's a disappointment. I just opened my Synapse when I watched it for the show for the first time, and I was like, oh shit, they included a soundtrack for this. Well, this is really awesome, because the music is, I mean, we talk about the atmosphere visually for this movie, but what adds to that is the sound. I mean, this is
absolutely
super creepy that there's like this kind of like Gregorian chants at times throughout. It's this creepy music adds to the creepy atmosphere 100% to all these films, for sure. You know, probably one of my dream soundtracks next to Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, with just odd, weird sounds.
Yeah, you know, it is music. It does have a composition, and it does have themes and instrumentation, but it's that composer does such a nice job of making it sound sort of like atonal soundscape. One thing that I think is an interesting choice in all the films, there's always a moment or many moments in the movies where the knights are horseback riding slowly in very, very, very creepy slow motion, which we've all started to allude to a little bit here. That is one of the scarier elements of it, is when they're coming for you, 4 horsemen over the apocalypse style in slow motion. But there's no music during those scenes. There's just some weird sort of, I can't even say it's the hooves of the horses, although I think it's meant to kind of be that way. Yeah. It is more like some sort of percussive element through echo box with a little bit of delay. It's better than any music they could have put to any of those things, because all the other sound drops out. The only other sound you're hearing are these weird clop sounds, and but they're synthesized. They're affected in some way by the studio process. They're not just pure horse hooves. Man, that makes it so much creepier. But I got to tell you, this is a choice that I always thought was kind of interesting. Is clearly they set out that these guys are going to have a slow motion motif, but when they're moving in slow motion, everyone else is moving in slow motion too. So it's more like, oh, we're entering some sort of otherworldly, dreamlike moment when they're on their horses riding. It becomes, because they're not slow motion when they're walking, it's usually only when they're riding, right? Yeah. Which I think is kind of interesting. And the slow motion isn't always, because like in Return of the Blind Dead, the second movie, when they're attacking the town, they're swinging their swords in full motion. Yeah. So, and they're on horses. So it's clearly like you're so terrified that you're not going to get out of this situation of the pursuit or the army of horses coming your way, that it elongates, you know, in the same way that if you smoke pot, it affects time or whatever, you know. It kind of feels like it stretches it out in a supernatural kind of way here.
Well, it's very recognizable, and all I can say is that if I hear those monks, I'm getting out of there.
and there's not music, but don't forget, once in a while, you know, if they have a jump scare coming up, they'll give you a
yeah. Yep.
And one thing we've mentioned the look of the monks, the Blind Dead, but that is Jose Luis Campos is the one who designed that skull face, and it really is effective because of the hoods. You're able to put that skull mask on the actors, and it protrudes out of the hood. It's a very effective presentation, and as you pointed out, Damien, how is that beard still on there? I mean, I guess in Spain, like the hair grows all the way into the skull as opposed to just into the flesh.
Well, there's a lot of things, Aaron. You just got to let it go. Like, why? There's a fist fight, a very protracted fist fight between the human characters in Return of the Blind Dead. They clearly know how to fist fight. Why does anybody think to punch this skull in the fucking face? Like clearly they're going to fall over. Clearly you're going to knock their jaw right off of their damn head. I mean, these are skeletons, for Christ's sake. Where is the strength coming from? They have no muscle. It's just, you got to get over it, though. You just got to get over it.
I forget which movie it is. There's the one where they burn their eyes out in the
Right.
when they show the thing, but yet
That's the second
the
one.
hair stays. The
Right.
hair doesn't burn off. Like, they're completely in fire when they do that, but they still have their hair and their beards and all that. And another thing too, that is in the second film, when he's driving over him with the car, he stops. It's like you just drove over a bunch of them. Keep going.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty amazing how consistent the makeup looks in all four films.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's always fantastic looking. It never deteriorates over time, or each film they had less money, so they cut corners really, at least in the faces. The one thing that always kind of bothered me in all these films is their hands, how they just kind of used puppet hands or just moved around. They don't have really no grip or anything like that a lot of times in the scenes, which never kind of made sense. I mean, just make some kind of rotted glove that they can use a hand.
I just wanted to mention about the mask that when Ossorio had written the script, he went to producers and they wanted to put Dracula or something in there, and he made masks to show to the producers, and that's what convinced producers to invest money in the film.
Right. They wanted a more conventional monster, a more recognizable one that they could market. He had to come up with a design and actually show it to them before they would give him the money for the film.
I got to say, that zombie, as a unique zombie, oh my God, it instantly hits you as something terrifying. And it looks great on the posters, even illustrated. They look fantastic. Yep. I mean, they have the hoods, so it's a little bit like a Satanist of the time, or, black magic kind of thing. I mean, not that different from the hoods worn in Horror Hotel at the end of that one. There's kind of a thing around that, but those big capes and those amazing faces and just the way they move, it's just all its own thing. Yeah.
In 1972, most zombies are emulating Night of the Living Dead. Dead people who came back to life, so they still have like a lot of that human composition to them, where these are just really rotted much more than other zombies of that time.
And that's a good point you're bringing up, Damien. That's another thing all these movies have in common. You always have a little bit of a siege borrowed from Night of the Living Dead, where they board up the houses and everything. So, yeah.
I love a good siege. So the fact that there are 4 sieges is totally cool with me.
And the fact that they have those capes and everything, there is a cult aspect to every single one of the films. All of them are a cult of some kind. And that those robes and everything just absolutely lend it. I love the fact that the cult isn't the same each time. I mean, they all like to munch on their victims. That's consistent. The background as to why they are a cult and what they want to get out of their cultdom, that continues to change. And I think that's pretty cool. I do want to throw out a quick shout out to our actress, Maria Elena Arpon, because she shows up in Narcisco Serrador's A House That Screamed, and she's also in Hunchback of the Morgue with Paul Naschy. She's just somebody who she only made like 19 films over the course of her career, but she's so striking in this one. I mean, no shade on Lona Fleming. I absolutely remember Maria Elena Arpon as a character both living and dead and undead.
And Maria Silva is also in Curse of the Devil and Mummy's Revenge. There's a lot of actors in this series that end up in a lot of Paul Naschy stuff, as well as even being regulars in Ossorio's filmography. I mean, even returning actors from the first film to the second film. You got Lona and the guy who plays Pedro. They're both back in the second movie.
Right,
Yeah.
which is hilarious.
Yeah.
Before we leave this one, let's talk about Pedro really quick, is what you were alluding to, Darren. There is sexual violence on hand, and again, this is the late 60s, early 70s, where I think violence toward women was kind of seen as a shorthand for indicating this character is an evil character, but also to give the folks what they wanted, quote unquote, in the form of having some nudity and things like that. Not to discount that, but I think you do have to recognize that it is part of the film of this time. We were talking about how the American cut is different. That rape scene is completely eliminated, which is interesting considering, American audiences were no different. They liked their scenes of sexual violence as well as anybody. They cut that out completely.
They also talk about when Virginia dies, the police are all, she was asking for it, flaunting, look at how she was dressed, all that when they find her. So you still get that kind of, Neanderthal mentality, even though she wasn't, they say that she wasn't assaulted sexually by the Templars. They still have to put that in there where they kind of make that comment. Well, look how she's dressed. So if it would have happened, then it would make sense. But either way, she's dead because she was asking for it.
It's inferred that she had a lesbian relationship with Lona Fleming's character. Yeah. So there's also that kind of deviance of like, well, you're deviant, therefore you must suffer.
Remember what I taught you.
Obviously, all European cinema had this problem back then. And so I would just want to personally acknowledge that I don't feel comfortable with any of the scenes that are in any of the 4 movies. They are not so extreme that you're like, this is an X rating or something like that, but all of them are uncool and none of them serve the story. And I do feel like we're looking at a little bit of a kink for the director or the writer. I don't like knowing that or seeing that, But then again, I look at European films in the 70s and Italian films and then Spanish films, this happened a lot. It happened in Death Wish and other things. Like, this is horror. It's a horror film. Rape is horrible. It's going to make its way into some of these films. The question is, what's the context? And I feel like the context here is not to serve the story. The context is pure titillation, and that's where I give it full marks off. I do think that when either women or men, they're kind of killed equally. I don't feel like there's violence towards all. It just happens to be a little bit of sexual violence towards the women, even not from the Templars, from like the human characters, showing how awful they are.
One thing that they brought up in this book is that, unfortunately, with the first film, with Virginia, like you said, okay, she's implied she had a lesbian relationship, and she says, I hate men. And they suggest that with Pedro, well, I'm going to fix you then. But one thing I will kind of say that kind of works for me is in the last film, when they dress the girls in the white cloak, but they're nude underneath and stuff, that has kind of an ethereal touch to it, like those old Gothic romance books that you used to see with the girl running from the castle, or the Greek myth of Andromeda chained so the Kraken could get her and stuff. So I don't mind that as much. That's kind of interesting.
Well, and certainly in the hands of another director, we would have just seen a nude woman strapped to the rocks for the monsters to get.
There's nothing inappropriate in any of these 4 films that match Private Lessons with Sylvia Cristal. So that movie exists and is on Tubi and should be freaking illegal. So I think they're not in that territory. So it's all right. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie.
But I need to now, I guess.
No, you don't need to now. No one needs to see it now.
Well, the fact that you said I shouldn't means not.
So, yeah, exactly. One's man's garbage is. Jimmy, did you have anything you want to throw in here?
I can say for some reason I'm not bothered by any of the sacrifice scenes with the even cut into the women's breast and all of that. Mm-hmm. I'm not so bothered by that. Maybe because that's seems more fictional, I don't know, but I agree that the rape scenes are not needed in these films.
I think that's purely exploitation purposes, and I wonder how much of that the producer forced them to put something like that into the movie just to put asses in seats and stuff, where the sacrifice scenes, I mean, they're ripping girls' tops off because they need to get to the heart, right?
Yeah.
So
you're not need to cut her.
She's not wearing a suit of armor, for God's sake, bro. Sure. Whatever. Side note.
One thing that I find interesting in the movie, though, is how the women themselves are very free and open, and they are their own people. They make their own decisions, and they, like, especially with their sexuality, Pedro's girlfriend, that's, she's completely like always got the filthy mouth going on. But I find that interesting and cool that they're that well-rounded and free, and not just your typical damsels in distress or people that kind of don't have their own minds, although obviously they get paralyzed with fear once the Templars show up. I mean, once they fall down, half of them can't get back up again, except for the Lucy in the last movie. She actually finally can get on her feet. The others practically got to be dragged around.
Actually, I will echo that. I think there's a lot of amazing women characters, and well portrayed by the actors and well served by a script among the 4 films. I mean, they are not just objects being moved around. They move the plot. They have a voice. They talk about the plans. They're a part of the group. Sometimes, there's a macho dominant guy around, but they also recognize he's a fool when that happens. And they I like really all the women in the movie, and there are many of them, and many of them are not exploited. Some of them are just characters. I mean, the fact that Lona Fleming's in 2 movies is just, she liked the director so much, so she's not even playing the same character. So it's okay.
Think about in the film, the mother of the little girl in the second film.
That's Lona Fleming.
The bravest person in all of these films. She yells at the Templars, "Come and get me! Leave my daughter alone!" That's
Yeah.
what.
Yeah. And, completely unnecessary. She could have said that from the door frame, but what else?
They also could use the torch to light them on fire.
Oh, there were many strategies that I'm just like,
what unexplored.
Although I have to say, when the little girl is like, "Why aren't you running to us, little girl?" And then they figure out that she's actually been knifed to the door, her dress. That's friggin' genius. That's really good. And then she can't move because she can't get the knife out, but she's so scared she doesn't think to say that. I love that. So good.
We were talking a little bit about the differences between the US cut and the Spanish cut, and I watched the US cut. I was wondering why they cut the kissing scene between Virginia and Beth, because it didn't seem so extreme to me. Was it too long, or was it that they didn't want any lesbian kissing for moral reason?
I mean, I feel like that's period? Which is weird, because that's some prime exploitation, and it's strange that the U.S. cut is kind of prurient in that regard. It's completely excised. They excise that, and they excise the rape scene. So not sure what that's about. Damien, you alluded earlier to the Planet of the Apes tie-in. When this film was released, we talked about the American cut just now, The Blind Dead, but it was also released as Revenge from Planet Ape, with a prologue talking about how these were actually intelligent apes that had eventually died, and that these were the skeletons of said apes that were returning to menace Lona Fleming et al., which I thought was just hilarious. Because, I mean, if you think about it, like, Planet of the Apes wasn't a huge franchise at that point. I think maybe the sequel, Beneath, had been made.
I think there's 3 out at that point.
That's true. Escape came out in 1971.
But I think it's because the opening shot of that prologue looks like it could be a scene from Planet of the Apes. And I think somebody in a meeting was like, "I got an idea." Of course, they'd said it in a Spanish accent, but I'm not going to do that. But I think somebody was like, "What the hell? We'll release it to 12 theaters with a different title, Aping the Apes, and we'll see what it does." And it probably did nothing to it. So it's fine.
I just shit out of people even more.
Exactly. You're sitting there like going, "Wait a minute, this is The Blind Dead." Let us move ahead to our second film. We've already touched on it in passing, but Return of the Blind Dead, also known as Return of the Evil Dead. The setup is that this is the 500th anniversary of the defeat of the Templars, which is actually historically incorrect, because they were condemned in 1307 as opposed to 1407. But we get it's a much bigger movie. More Templars, we got more riding around, we got a lot more slashing and killing. So yeah, what are people's thoughts about Return of the Blind Dead?
When I first watched it, I didn't like it quite as much. I think because some of the mystery was gone. We already knew about the Blind Dead and such. But it's actually a pretty good sequel. When the Templars come to the village or the town, it's almost turned into an action movie for a while. Even they want some more Templar action, I think. but the best part is when they get to the church. I think is the most effective. And I can
Yeah.
say the title "Return of the Blind Dead" or "Evil Dead" actually makes sense in the story, because the Templars have been dead for hundreds of years, and then they're brought back. So even if it's not the Templars of the first film, it still makes sense in the story.
I would have to say this is probably my second favorite of the series. I love that they gave it more of a backstory. I like the story of the town celebrating the defeat of the Templars, and I think I really like the scenes when they're in a church looking out, and you just see Blind Dead just standing there motionless. I think that's a
Yeah.
really effective, creepy scene, and I think this is a well laid out story, and the background is a little bit more where they're literally burning out their eyes with the torches, so it gives you a little bit more. I feel like the first movie, I guess, was a success, and when they're coming back to it, they developed the story a little more with this one.
Yeah, I know we might do a ranking among us later in the pod, but I just want to say of the four, this is my least favorite. I really don't think it gets going until the siege of the church. And then that stuff is great. I love all of that. But the first half hour, 40 minutes or so with the fireworks and the festival, and the only thing I really like is the telegraph office stuff that goes down. I think that's really cool. And you're going to be like, why isn't Ghost Galleon the fourth, Darren? That's clearly not at the level of this one, but I got a thing for boats and scary boats, so that's why. But I don't like the mayor very much. I know he's a famous Spanish actor and was in a lot of stuff, and all those thugs seem kind of cartoon villainesque. So it's my least favorite. However, again, having said that, there are many things in it that I like. And I do like that of the four, it's got the biggest scale.
I mean, for me, it ups the ante. It basically turns into like an all-out war when they attack the town, and everything goes crazy. So I think I love all of the action stuff and how it basically does what a sequel does. Gives you more of everything, more of the Templars, a lot more rowdy. I mean, we get those returning characters. Pedro, who is now Juan from the original one. That guy is, again, another Ossorio regular. I mean, He's in a lot of his stuff. He's also Knight of the Werewolf. And you get Frank Brana, who's in Pieces, and he's a Pierre Simon regular. He's great. He's got a great character in there with that. And I mean, of course, Unibrow Creepo Murdo. I mean, how can you not love that guy? He's so wacky and weird and wild. And I mean, it's the first time we get the recycled resurrection footage, which they use again, obviously, in Night of the Seagulls. But, I agree. I like the siege version of it as well. I like how they're all standing there outside just with their swords, just waiting, and it's funny again how they don't bring back the heartbeat thing where they go out there and they can't find them if they don't make sounds or noise. That mayor is such a jerk. I mean, he is such a POS. I mean, using that little girl to go out there and do that. I mean, it's like, oh, he definitely gets his good, thankfully.
Yeah, it's Fernando Sanchez as our mayor. And let us not forget the hilarious comedy of the governor and the phone calls from the mayor to the governor.
Yes.
Up to you, Alan.
Even in this little booklet, they talk about that, like where the governor gets these phone calls from the terrified people of Berzano saying they're coming back from the dead, they're killing us all. Yeah. You've had just enjoy your wine, Mayor, and then he says to his mistress in bed, get me up about noon tomorrow. We'll deal with this all then. I think Jimmy brought up, this is a little more of an action movie. That has that going for it. It goes in a different direction.
Which no one would describe the Blind Dead as action movies. And
right. When they get going, that sword arm, boy, that's in good shape. But one thing I like just at the very beginning, in this one, their eyes don't get pecked out by crows. Now they get burned out, actually. But after you get that introduction, you get, of course, another zoom in where it goes, and you have a mannequin, a doll, a figure of one of the Templars in the white hood and surplice and cape. And it looks like almost like a child's face, but they've drawn vampire fangs onto it. So it's kind of like, saying, hi, we beat you, and that just makes it all the more ironic when the people that they thought they had put down were completely destroyed. come back and do that. I do like the unfortunate guy with the bad arm and the limited brain. I forget his name in this one, but
Murdo.
But he does Murdo. He does get off a good line when the Templars are showing up and they brush patches. What are you mad at me for? I didn't put your eyes out. His fate, along with especially the blonde woman who initially survived the attack, that's pretty.
Yeah.
In this film.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, that scene in the tunnel, I think is really cool. We talked about there's 4 films, but 2 of the films have completely different cuts. This is one that has an alternate cut. And in the alternate cut, one, he is the reason the Templars rise because he does an incantation of some sort. And the other one, he's just a luckless guy and they paint him more sympathetic and they happen to wake up when he's there. So they totally cut out his sort of meanness in the European cut of orchestrating all this. So it does seem weird when he leads that woman down to the tunnel and her fate. His fate as well, because he started the whole thing in one version, but the other version, he's just an innocent lunk. So I don't know how to feel about his death. It's confusing.
But he still knows that the Templars will return. He says the Templars will return, and then they just happen to return when he's close by.
Yeah. I mean, I like the idea, but because of the 2 cuts having such a different take on him, his death means 2 totally different things. And
That's right. That's right.
I just want to add though about the governor scene too. My wife and I had a great chuckle about when he was answering the phone and he had to put his glasses on so he could get a good look at the maid as she was bending over, and then when she was done, he took them back off again. So it's like we had a good guffaw over that one.
What sexism? What are you talking about? Any other favorite moments that we want to highlight before we move on?
I liked also, they do show the damage. Like there's a couple of pullback camera shots of the town where there's just like a field of 30 people killed by the Templars and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So the scale of the death is at its highest in this movie for sure.
We talked about the mythologies changing. This is the ending of this one is completely different than the first one. I mean, the first one obviously, has had some more pessimistic ending. This one, it's kind of a Deus Ex Machina. They're standing there and the little girl, removes her blindfold and screams, and you think, our heroes are done for. And then the sunlight, I guess, takes them all out. I love that slow, them just kind of like toppling over. It's such a great scene.
Well, in this little booklet, they compare that to the scene in The Birds when they're trying to walk past a cluster of crows on the monkey bars and stay quiet, stay quiet, stay quiet. That sort of thing. Yep.
Yeah.
I thought about The Birds too, actually, when I saw the ending.
It's a shame with I think we're a little spoiled with all the other ones being on Blu-ray or Ghost Galleon on 4K and stuff like that. And this one just has a DVD release, and the Spanish version on that almost looks like it was just ripped from a VHS or something because there's some really dark scenes in it that it's a shame that we don't have something. Like I said, we're so spoiled now with seeing these older films so clear again. It's like watching them for the first time. That I'm really missing this one like that.
Hey, I didn't look this up, Aaron. Are all 4 films shot by the same cinematographer?
They are not, actually. We have 4 different cinematographers.
Because they're so consistent. I mean,
that's what I thought. Because I figured that, he was working with the same creative team, but he, as you mentioned, our music is the same, but it's basically the same cues pulled time and time again. And we get the same makeup, but everybody else seems to have changed hands. We get different editors, we get different cinematographers, etc. Bouncing ahead to our third one, the Ghost Galleon, a 1974, Darren's favorite one.
It wasn't my favorite. I'll just say. It just beats out Return just for a hair. But if you want, I can give a little reason why.
Please dive in.
Let you. Okay, so the plot of this one is so thin, but it is basically a modeling company, a PR agency get together, and they decide to stage a fake publicity stunt of a couple models lost at sea on a tiny rowboat. The whole thing's a terrible idea. It's ripe with danger. They've got a tracker on the girls. They kind of know where they are, and they're going to rescue them at a point a couple days in. Well, they end up coming across a Flying Dutchman type ghost ship, and rather than sit in their little tiny boat, they end up getting on the big boat. And
well, the reason they get on the big boat, not to interrupt, is because they crash into the Ghost Galleon and they start taking on water.
That's right.
Yeah.
The thing I love about it, this is so Darren Callahan, is when they get on the boat, it's perpetual night. I just think that is the coolest idea, that when you're on the galleon, not only do you have fog in an area of the ocean where there's never any fog, but it is perpetual night on the ship itself. I think that's really creepy. Even with God, the model work is the worst. These boats look terrible, but the set of the boat looks fantastic. The one
Yes.
there's a sound stage. That looks amazing. But all the outside shots of the boats are terrible. The plot setup is terrible. I don't know. It's full of flaws, but just the idea of a boat that's perpetual night is, I just think that's so much cooler than anything in Return of the Evil Dead.
Again, we have another kind of mythology. It's almost like we enter a different dimension when we get on the boat. They cannot be seen. There's another boat that's passing by and they are invisible to that boat. I think there's just some really fun, like, why not do a Templar movie where it's actually about like another dimension? I'm like, that's cool. Why not throw that in?
This is, I think again where I said, like, I'm just blind to everything that happens to these movies. I just love them. But to me, the Ghost Galleon, I don't understand the story that they're trying to tell at all. I don't understand the purpose of the models being out there and the publicity stunt. I don't get it. Maybe I missed it in the storytelling, but I don't get it. But I'm like, whatever, because the Ghost Galleon looks great. Like, all the scenes on the boat look great, even though Blind Dead don't really do much in this movie. They kind of meander here, they kind of meander there a little bit. I do love this skull with the ram horns that they bring onto this one, where it shows us now they're kind of more of a devil worshipping or some kind of goat-headed god worshipping club, or whatever. So there's a lot of aspects of it that I still like about this, and I'm a big fan of stories like with the Flying Dutchman, so I really appreciate the ship. So yeah, despite I think this being a really shallow story in almost every aspect, I still love this one. I still think it looks absolutely amazing.
I'm going to disagree, I think, a little with Darren, because I don't mind the setup. I think the setup is actually an attempt to get some mystery back again, like we had in the first movie. And now we have this ghost ship. And I mean, the publicity stunt might be stupid, but is it the stupidest things a character has come up with in the series? I don't know. What I don't like, I think, first one is that this ship, although it looks good, is too small, so that we don't get very interesting chase sequences, I don't think. And the director actually said in an interview that we didn't have a ship, we had half a boat. He also wanted to have a bigger ship. And the other thing is that the most sympathetic character in the film is I think she's called Noemi, a friend of the one of the models.
Yeah, she's the one who starts the whole enterprise, in terms of the rescue.
Exactly. And she's the only one who cares about these models. Spoiler alert, she dies with half an hour remaining. The ending, although the ending is great, if they wanted a man and a woman at the end on the shore, why couldn't it have been her?
I agree. The photographer isn't very sympathetic to stay till the end, and the roommate was. So It is kind of a bait and switch that the photographer the female photographer ends up staying alive. Maybe you guys can help me out with this. All the Blind Dead rise out of the ocean in daylight at the end, which I think is a very cool shot. But isn't that the exact same shot from Shockwaves? I don't know which is first.
Yeah, right.
Well, this is before Shockwaves for sure.
Oh, okay. So Shockwaves might have been inspired by that, or unintentionally ripped it off. But it's an almost identical shot in my mind. I haven't seen Shockwaves in a while, but yeah.
But yeah, well, I would say the other reason why the Lillian photographer character survives is because she's played by Maria Pershy, who's a bigger name.
That explains
it. So that's why she had to survive to the end, along with Jack Taylor, R.I.P. Jack Taylor, just an absolute staple of Spanish genre cinema. He worked with everybody from Franco to Nashi to Klimovsky to Polanski, J.P. Simon. I mean,
Yeah.
Jack Taylor, just a legend. And he's so sleazy and awful in this one. Ryan, what are your thoughts on A Ghost Galleon?
Well, I'll kind of back up Darren a little bit in that it flip-flops, but a lot of times this is actually my favorite one. I mean, you can see I've got the Horror of the Zombies one sheet in the background there framed for me. I love the atmosphere of it. I love once they get on the ship, even though it is only half a ship, to me, he makes such great use of it that it doesn't feel like it's only half a ship. I really think he does a great job. And the way that the whole thing is cloaked in fog the whole time, I mean, the scientist himself, says we're in another dimension. We're not in this normal plane. I mean, which I find interesting in the fact of during this watch that I was like, this dude was telling them how nobody ever returns. You're not gonna, if you go, you're done. But he willingly goes, I got to do this. But I mean, to me, the atmosphere of it is so cool. I mean, and I think in this one, you actually do get a little bit of articulation in the hands when their skeletal hands are grabbing things as they're coming up. The Templars look great. I mean, we get some of the best gore. Noemi should have, I agree, been the one that maybe made it, or for me, it would have been Blanca Estrada's character, Kathy. I really liked her. She gets the most spectacular death. I mean, when they slice her head half off and you see all the blood running down and they're actually munching on her severed hand and all that. So, I mean, we get some decent gore effects in that as well. And I like, how even though it is so confined and claustrophobic, they still do kind of run around and you get Blanca Estrada's character gets a pretty nice chase sequence. But again, how the scientist is able to drive them back with the flaming cross. I thought that was a really neat idea as well. I mean, I always wondered why they never tried to get back on any of the boats. I mean, I know the one was taking on water, but they saw it was still there.
Well, no, it disappears.
One disappears, yeah.
Oh, the one that they take over to it disappears. Like they look over the edge and it's gone.
There. But the girls' boat was still there. They did look over the edge and you see it.
Right.
And so that was why it was weird. I mean, I know it was taken on water, so maybe that was,
I'd just jump, swim,
I mean, and I will say, for me, this one's got the best ending of all the movies, without question. I mean, that image of them coming out of the surf at the end, that gotcha is, I mean, of all the movies by far, none of the other endings. I mean, the ending of the first one is great, but this is like just seeing them come out and you see the water rushing out of the holes in their eyes and all that stuff. And they think they're safe. And it's like, nope, you're not. So, I mean, for me, it's, I know a lot of people like to put it as the least favorite one, but like I said, a lot of times it is my favorite. I love it.
Well, and I like that it has kind of its own mythology around it. Like, again, we kind of retcon everything and it's a fresh start as to where these Templars are coming from.
The first time I saw this was on not Commander USA's cable show, but the Saturday Nightmares show that they used to have on USA Network. So used to show an awful lot of bizarre stuff on there. So, and something we've touched on, I like the idea that they're exploiting a couple pop culture things here. One is not only the Flying Dutchman thing, but also kind of the Bermuda Triangle stuff that's so popular with the Charles Berlitz book back then. And just The Exorcist with the purifying cross. And, he says the incantation to try and drive them back to hell. I really like that. One other thing I'll mention is the same person who got me into a lot of these Blind Dead films, a fellow named Scott Lawrence in New Orleans. He had an interesting experience watching this film. This is one of those things where like you mishear something or something goes weird that other people don't see. But when he rented the movie, the VHS tape was a little bit chewed. When he watched it, that very end where they think they're safe, and then the Blind Dead are all around them, something happened to the soundtrack, so there was nothing. Wow. It was just like, and that for him was the most startling thing. You see, like, that's it. That's, ripped out of the time-space continuum into this moment of eternal dread.
Very cool.
Actually, that last shot where the credits actually roll, it's basically a still photograph of the Blind Dead reaching in to the last survivors, surrounding them with a little bit of daylight behind them. You can't read the credits at all because it's white font, but it's such a terrifying image to end a film on. It is very cool. Matter of fact, I had a similar experience where I rented a DVD one time and I was watching it, and the DVD image stuck and the audio continued. I think it was The Roost. It was the film The Roost. And I was like, this is a bold choice because there's a bat attack going on and it's just people like frozen. And I was like, oh my God, that's so brilliant. And then I realized later there's just a whack.
It's just a glitch.
Yeah,
Glitch.
a glitch. There was actually a full-on bat attack I missed. Oh, wow.
Cool. Let's jump ahead to our final film in the series, which is Night of the Seagulls. Again, we get a different mythology around the Templars. We get a completely different atmosphere. You know, we go from the sea to a coast, and we have a doctor and his wife that come to town. They are immediately spurned by the locals. They don't want any of this newfangled newcomers coming in here. But I think also because they're in the midst of their big ritual every 7 years where they have to sacrifice 7 maidens to the gods of the sea, which turn out to be our friends, the Templars.
Honestly, this is the one I've seen the least. It's great. I really like the new wrinkles that they added with it. You get the hunchback kind of guy. In the beginning, when you see him in the window, he kind of reminds me of the priest that hung himself in City of the Living Dead. He kind of looks like him a little bit. He's got a very recognizable face, but he only did that movie and like 3 other things. So that was it, which I never heard of any of that stuff. They add the new wrinkle of where the whole town's in on it and they have the ritual.
It's not my favorite actually, because, well, I don't think the scenes with the Templars are as effective in this one. But they do have a sacrifice scene with a beating heart before Indiana Jones, what's it called, Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
So that was pretty neat. The story we talked about, Lovecraft influences, it also reminded me of The Wicker Man. If we have a lot of the elements, and I thought that the doctor would take the role of the police officer in The Wicker Man and continue to investigate this missing girl, but he gives up pretty early. He just goes to her house, and then after that the movie is not that interesting to me. I do think it's a fitting end that this is the first film where the characters kill off the blind dead, because in the second movie they died from sunlight or something. So that's a fitting end to it, but it could have been more exciting.
This is also the one where when they die, the blood rushes out of their eyes. Is that right?
Yeah, that's good.
It's a cool ending.
We talked about the Lovecraft touches I like. And one point, all of these families, the mothers and fathers, are offering up their kids. And, it's like, how can you do that? And there is a very effective moment when the doctor asks them, didn't you ever try to fight back? And he says, then they killed everybody, including the women and children.
There's a scene where they are walking one of the girls to the sacrificial rock, and you see that one of the girls that's walking is a younger one. And I thought the exchange between the two of them, it's like, but for the grace of God, that could have been me. I could have been the one that's walking to the rock instead of being the one who's escorting you. I found that to be kind of powerful.
I think the title of this movie is really interesting. When we hear Night of the Seagulls, we certainly don't think of a horror movie. The doctor's wife questions why there's seagulls at night.
Right.
And they explain it that, they're the souls of the sacrifice girls screaming and stuff. And then you're like, oh, fuck, Night of the Seagulls is a great title, when you have an explanation like that. So I think that's really interesting. And almost in all these movies, everything's very very straightforward story. But now we suddenly get a little symbolism thrown into the mix here. And I thought that was really interesting. And I like how all these films, they're all separate movies completely. Like you could have took the Blind Dead out of all of these and put in some other kind of monster, and it would have worked in itself. But the fact that the Blind Dead are in 4 completely separate stories is really interesting. So this is like taking a Lovecraft type story, taking out Lovecraft's monsters and putting in the Blind Dead. What other kind of movies could have we gotten where we just take out another character and throw in the Blind Dead? And then, fuck, that's awesome.
The other thing that I'll add is that I thought the crabs coming down when they make the sacrifice and chewing on the dead sacrificial lady was a really weird, and it just adds a really like weird like flavor to it. Like it's like, why is that there? What are they doing? I mean, it does tie it more to like the sea god, Lovecraftian like statue that they have there. That was definitely something that I really picked up on this time that I didn't really notice before. Where I was just, that's really weird. Why did they do that?
And not just any crabs, these horrible parasite-ridden crabs.
I don't want to eat one of those.
Yeah, I know. Oh, and I did remember one of the things, again, in this book, they mentioned, the author said, I kind of would have liked to have seen the blind dead go after the people when they left the town, when the people said, oh, they've been deprived of their sacrifice, they're coming for us. But
they were ready to go, too. I mean, it took them no time to pack. Yeah. I'm out of here. It's over. Bye.
And I will also mention the blind dead in the third film, they don't have their swords because it's probably hard to do battle on that little confined space. This one, they have their swords back again.
My issue with the Ghost Galleon is that there's a whole lot of wandering around down hallways and things like that. There's a lot of padding. Here you get just a different feel. Dark, it's overcast, it's wet. You have a lot of the shoreline. I just think because if you think back to the first one, it's out in an open field with different mythologies. We also get different environmental settings.
It's like the end of the Ghost Galleon where they crawl out of the sea and they go onto the beach. It's like, well, now we're on the beach. We're gonna set up shop here, and so begins Night of the Seagulls.
There you go. They're like, okay, now we're just going to establish that you need to sacrifice 7 girls.
This is actually my favorite of the 4. And if I was to introduce somebody to the series, this would be the one I would show them. Somebody used the word weird here, and that's true. This is the weird one in a lot of ways. Even though the traditional tropes are sort of in play here and there, I think just in general, it's got its own thing. It's different from the other 3 movies. I don't know really how or why, but it's just, and maybe partly, Aaron, it's the location. It just feels very different from the other movies in a way that it feels interesting to me. It's not a repeat at all of what's happened in the other 3, which I love. I will say there are probably 3 flaws to it that I have a really hard time getting over. One is, why would you live there at all? Like, it just seems like a bad idea. Second of all, I really can't, because I have a daughter and a son. I can't imagine like just being like, I'm going to walk them to the rock. And I know this is tragic, but it has to be done. No fucking way. I'd get out of town or fight back or do something, even at the crazy expense. And the third is that doctor's sweater. What in the name of God is that choice of the sweater he wears for 90% of the movie? It's the worst sweater I think I've ever seen in film. And
it was the 70s, man. We made some unfortunate choices then.
God, it's really distracting. I mean, aside from those 3 complaints, I actually, one of my favorite characters of the whole series is the doctor's wife. I think she's great.
She is awesome. Yeah.
Very good. And I think the scene where she is barricading herself in the kitchen, I guess, I don't know what room of the house she's in, where she's barricading herself in there, is one of the best scenes in the whole franchise, in which he escapes off the roof and jumps onto the dead horse. By the way, those dead horses are cool.
Yeah, right. I love that people like consistently they're stealing the Templars' horses and riding off on them.
I agree.
Yeah, I love that.
This movie is the first time that it actually has a negative effect because the horses take them back to the monastery.
The horses go, excuse me.
The other ones, they just go like, hey, I'm taking this horse.
Also a dead
negative thing.
I like that the horses are flesh and blood. They're not skeleton horses.
Yeah. But yeah, this is my favorite. This is the one I like the most. It's the one I played downstairs in our movie theater for some friends. It looks great. I even only have the DVD, and it looked fantastic. It's got shot through like a weird gauze kind of thing. It does look very rainy and mopey, and I don't know. I think it's the scariest, and I do like the triumphal ending, which is kind of nice. So
it is interesting that all the outdoor scenes have that like kind of haze to it, and all the indoor scenes are all very clear.
Funny that you like Joanna, our doctor's wife, when he's trying to like get her to come out, and she's like, no, just leave me behind. I'd rather stay here. I was
Okay.
like, okay, you are just a problem.
Yeah, every movie there's some stupid person making a stupid choice. But
I didn't understand why the doctor worked at that village. Like, clearly they don't want a doctor.
Right.
Clearly the other doctor was like, I'm fucking out of here.
Yeah,
This is your
get
problem
outta
now.
here.
Like, why would this doctor choose
Well,
to
didn't
work
he
in this
say?
village?
Didn't the other doctor say that like request a transfer as soon as you
Yes.
can? So it's like there's like an
Yes.
edict that every town has to have a doctor. I guess.
So who's paying this doctor to stay there? I mean, I think you can save some money about saying, this village,
Yeah,
no
we're
doctor.
just not going to have it. You don't need a doctor. You're fine.
Yeah.
that's one of the things about
That's
the
a
movie.
PR
that's so
nightmare,
strange.
though.
It's so impoverished. They don't even have houses. It's like Chaco's Cave or something that they all live in. It's just like it's like a weird hilltop town. Like it's just like you don't see those in the United States. Well, maybe you do if you go up into the Catskills or something, but very primitive, and that adds to the full horror of it.
I was just going to say, with the doctor's situation, this is why it's very important to keep your LinkedIn profile up to date. And the doctor was odd. At times, he seemed, pretty insensitive because, like, Blind Dead are coming through the door at his wife, and he's still concerned about making sure the injured fellow is comfortable. And then he gets in the church and he says, and you're going to be the next sacrifice. They picked you. Does he say any words of comfort? Like, that'll never happen. I'll move heaven and earth to.
Well, he does lose his hand in that transaction, so.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I did like how the wife was like, we need to leave right now, tonight. And instead of him saying like, oh, nothing, it's okay. We'll leave in the morning. Like, it's not going to be a big deal. He's like, okay, yes, I agree. We do need to leave right now.
Even though he was warned by the other doctor, don't go out at night.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's go ahead and use that as our kicking off point to voice our final thoughts on Tombs of the Blind Dead and the Blind Dead series. Darren.
I would put Night of the Seagulls as number one, not by a country mile, but a little bit. Night of the Seagulls, Tombs, Ghost Galleon, Return. That would be my ranking. But they're all pretty even considering, the deal. And they're not one is like blow away amazing. It's not like the Indiana Jones franchise where you can definitely pick a winner in there. But it's a gradient. But I would say that, strangely enough, the fourth one is my favorite. I would say if you like zombie films, even tangentially, this is a must-see series, all four of them, because they really do have a cumulative effect of seeing all four of them and the variation within. They are prime 70s exploitation. I will warn everybody about the at least one per movie scene of sexual assault, which is more offensive than any of the zombie shenanigans. Again, it's not X-rated. It's just a little uncool or a lot uncool, however you want to classify it. But aside from that, it's really one of the best zombie projects out there in terms of a unique zombie and in terms of four upstanding films.
And over to you, Ryan. You were talking about the Synapse disc. There's a great feature-length documentary on there called Marauders of the Mediterranean, where they talk about the Spanish zombie wave, and they highlight Jorge Grau's film, and they highlight these films. But yeah, Ryan, what are your final thoughts on the Blind Dead series, and what's your ranking?
Well, that extra is fantastic because there isn't a lot of documentaries that do cover Spanish horror in general. So that one is a really great doc. So, I mean, the disc itself, aside from the movie, obviously, that documentary makes it worth the price of admission. If you don't have it, I recommend it. The Templars are so unique. There's literally nothing else like them. They exist in their own little space. It's really crazy how they've never really been ripped off or copied that much. I mean, they've kind of just been left alone, which I think is great because all four movies are fantastic. I love them all. If I had to put a ranking, I mean, right now I would probably say Ghost Galleon's my favorite, followed by the first one. And then the second one and probably Night of the Seagulls will be my least favorite. But I mean, if you ask me again tomorrow, Night of the Seagulls could be my third favorite because I it's the least one I've seen the least amount of times, and I really enjoyed watching it this time more so than I did the other times. Not that I didn't like it, it just, I don't know, it hit better this time for me. I mean, must-see TV for horror fans, period. I mean, you want to see something that's not like anything else at all out there, then you can't go wrong with this.
Over to you, Jimmy.
I forgot to talk about the second movie that when they get to the church, is very effective. We have all of the characters that we care about, or not everyone is sympathetic, but everyone we followed throughout the movie boarded up in this place.
Yeah.
But it feels a lot like Night of the Living Dead. They even have a car outside that they're trying to get to. Even with that, it's a very strong part of the movie. Each time someone does not want to cooperate with the other ones, try to wander off on their own, they die. As for ranking the movies, I would have to put the first one first. A good start to the franchise, very effective. And I think the second one is a good sequel. So I would put that very close. A lot of new stuff happening. They try to get more zombie action and so on. It's very entertaining, but most effective when they get to the church. The two last movies, I don't know which one I would rank last, but maybe I would put Night of the Seagulls last, but I'm a little unsure.
Up to you, Damien.
Yeah, I absolutely love this series. It's my favorite. It's not my favorite horror movies. It's not my favorite zombie movie, but as a group, a series of movies where it's all focusing on the same type of monster or character, the Blind Dead films is my favorite series of films for sure. They're so atmospheric, and to me, that goes a long way in movies. Rank them, it's Tombs, Return, number one, probably Night of the Seagulls, number one, two. And then I would only give Ghost Galleon 2 just because I think it's a little weak in the reasoning to get to the ship. And once on the ship, which is fucking awesome that they're on the ship. I love all the scenes, but they just kind of seem to walk around a little bit too much back and forth without much happening. But, you know, so Ghost Galleon's 1.5 then, you know, and everyone else is a 1. They're all just, I love them all. I love them all. And I love how they all stand on their own 2 feet. They're not a continuation of each other. So it's hard to rate it in that aspect.
And Alan.
I just echo what everybody else says. That it's a very unique monster. I watched some of these with my wife. She's a hard sell when it comes to some horror films. She was having a good time with them. In terms of ranking them, for me, it would be Tombs of the Blind Dead, maybe Return of the Evil Dead, and then Night of the Seagulls, and then Ghost Galleon. One other thing I would say is, I think there have been some little tributes to the Blind Dead that have shown up in Spanish cinema. Like, it's been years since I've seen it, but there's a movie called Cross of the Devil.
Right, John Gilling's film.
That has creatures, supposedly, I think Virgin Among the Living Dead has something. And I know definitely, I don't know if it was strictly meant to be a tribute to the Blind Dead, but if you watch Paul Nash's movie, Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman, one of the heroines runs into this rotted abbot in this, and he turns around and he has a skeletal Blind Dead face, and he chases her in slow motion. So there is some of that stuff out there. So, and one thing that's also close to my heart, in my collection of movie memorabilia, one of the favorite things I have is a one sheet for, I don't know if it's Tombs of the Blind Dead or Return of the Evil Dead, but it was for, like, before they really knew what they had here, they put it in a kiddie matinee or something like that. And the poster says Death Rides, and it has the Templars. But then it says, to help you, you get this free package. You have a blindfold to cover your eyes if it gets too hard for you. You have earplugs, so you don't have to listen to all that stuff. And best of all, soothing candy to get you through it. So terrific hoopla for you. Oh, and Aaron, that's something else you mentioned. We talked about how people die. You don't expect. These films are probably the purest example of Joe Bob Rick saying the best things in 70s movies is anybody can die at any time.
What's your rank, AC?
Because the first one was so striking to me, I mean, after the first like half hour, I was like, this movie's incredible. So the first one definitely holds a special place in my heart. And then I would probably go with Night of the Seagulls, just because it tells it from a completely different angle, using the Knights Templar. And then I would say I like Return of the Blind Dead. I think it's a solid sequel. Like you said, it's kind of a kicked up action movie, bigger and better. And then Ghost Galleon, I could condense Ghost Galleon down to a nice clip show that I would enjoy. And it would probably be a nice, tidy, 30 minutes.
We should tell people that if they've never seen it, the films are all slow burns.
Yeah, this
and
is
that's
not action
great,
packed.
but
And watching them all close together is maybe questionable.
Knocked all 4 out yesterday.
I did as well.
Yesterday. Yeah, with my wife and I, we watched all 4 of them. I mean, she'd seen them before too, but you know, it was actually kind of really fun to revisit them all so close together.
And it was such a pleasure. I was just going to say that as much as I love the first one, I have not gone back and revisited the sequels as often. And so it was really great to go back and see all 4 of these films, as you said, in close succession. I was really delighted knowing I was going to have this conversation, and you did not disappoint. So thank you all so much for that. Looking forward to having you all on again very soon. And until next time, keep searching, keep exploring, and keep sharing the scare.